Welcome to the Word Unwrapped podcast with Dr. Gregg Curtis. In this podcast, we take a deeper dive into some of your favorite Bible verses that may require some added context to further explain their intended meaning. And now, here's your host, Dr. Gregg Curtis.
Hey, Papa, how do you mend a broken relationship?
Yeah, that's a good question. And today on the Word Unwrapped, we're going to be talking about mending a broken relationship because we had a listener ask us about that. And Lee, you want to read her question to us?
Yeah, it's a good question. What is your advice to mend a broken relationship with my daughter? She says, I was mean, and I was a mean mother. I yelled at her and her father when she was a kid. She lived with me on and off until she was 32. She was baptized as a child, but after attending school, college, and dating a boyfriend that was an atheist, she changed to being an atheist. I pray for her return to God and me, her mother, every day.
Yeah. You know, relationships are about the trickiest things in the world. A good relationship is like heaven on earth. A bad relationship, well, that's kind of like the other end of the scale. And the world today is, I think, relationally dysfunctional because the world gets its relational advice from TV. It gets its relational advice from Hollywood, and we all know just how long those relationships last in Hollywood. Very seldom do you see a good, solid relationship. They are there, but very seldom. And a lot of the movies create this dynamic and this drama, and, you know, you have to have this tension. And thus, young people are being conditioned to think about relationships as being confrontational. And you live in a me generation, or a generation where everything is about me, and I have got to put me first before I put you first. And thus, you know, if I'm not getting my needs met like I think they ought to be getting met, then I am going to be very upset with you and take it out on you or whatever. We're living in a very self-centered generation, obviously, a time in the world where people are very much into themselves. Now, the Bible does say, you know, love your neighbor as you love yourself. So we should love ourselves. But the key there was to love your neighbor or your parent or your child and as you love yourself. There's the key right there. If you start loving people the way you love yourself, you won't have these conflicts. Because I've never seen somebody over in the corner just sitting there slapping themselves or, you know, banging their head against the wall and saying, you know, just running themselves down. Now, that does happen, but generally those people have a mental health issue too. So, you know, when you're talking about relationships, does God care about our relationships? Absolutely, because he put us in a relationship. He put Adam and Eve together in a relationship. And he said they were to leave and cleave, and that in that relationship, they were to reflect the relationship that God has with man. So, you know, the relationship vertically, the relationship horizontally, they have a relationship with each other. You can't say I've got a great relationship with God when I've got a lousy relationship with my wife or spouse or son or daughter, because one definitely has an impact on the other. So when we're talking about relationships, we have got to put the scriptures, what does God say about how to have a good relationship?
I think as a dad, as one of my children over there peering at me, I think who I was when he was 2 as a dad was not who I was when he was 10, is not who I am today. No comment. Somebody cut his mic. But also I've got a 3-year-old or almost 3-year-old now, and I think about who I am now with this 2-year-old, and I was different than I was with my other 2. So to the question, okay, I've already messed up. I've done the damage. That maybe I wasn't the right mom or dad at that point, and now they've grown up. That they've, you know, sort of moved on, and yet I am now who I wish I was then. That's a tough.
Parenting, I've always said, being a parent is a guilt trip. I mean,
Constantly.
because there are no perfect,
Constantly.
no perfect parents, and every parent messes up. And I think if I've talked to any parent at all, very long, they will express some guilt over something, because we don't do it perfect every time. We all fall short of that. Our humanity comes out. And when that happens, things are said or done that we wish we could take it back. So, having said that, since there are no perfect parents, even God, the perfect parent, he had 2 kids, put them in a garden, and what'd they do? They disobeyed. They rebelled. So, I mean, he had the same
I think it all
issue.
started when they started getting pets. That's what I. So anyways, that's another theological discussion.
Right.
Don't talk to snakes. I've told you that a million times, Charlie.
No, not really.
All right.
So, I think, this mom, obviously, she's got a daughter who's 30. She's lived with her in her home with her mom up until she's 32, which that says a lot right there. That tells me there's some issues, because that's not normal. That's not the way God intended. I think God intended us to raise our children with a view of independence, getting them out there at some point. We are raising them to be independent, responsible adults at some point. Having them always under our wing or always under our roof is not healthy for them or for us. So evidently there's more to this story, I think, than probably what we're hearing. But, she said, well, her mom yelled at her when she was a child. That sounds to me like a cop-out. That sounds to me like she's wanting to blame her mom for the mess her life is. She's looking for somebody to, identify all her anger upon. And so her mom yelled at her when she was young.
Well, clearly, she didn't yell at her enough to not live with her mom until she's 32.
Well,
Ouch.
something like that.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, if how many parents have raised their voice to their children. That's part of, I guess, what makes us a parent, is that sometimes we get frustrated, we get angry. Sometimes we see a child doing something that we've said don't do, and there's reasons for that, and they do it anyway. And so sometimes the language gets a little loud.
Is it right for the child to have a difficulty with that relationship? Is it right? Is it expected? Is it natural for the child to say, okay, I never being a parent myself, I look at that and say, Mom, Dad, you did it wrong. You yelled. How could you? I don't see that on my, in my friend, or if I don't hear that, from this relationship or that relationship. So therefore, is that expected? I mean, wouldn't that be a natural reaction from the child's perspective?
Oh, I think children are very elastic, and I think when we blow it, I think as parents we just need to admit it. Say, look, I didn't do that right. I didn't handle that right. Will you please forgive me? Most kids, 99% of them are going to say, sure. Yeah, they're pretty elastic. They're willing to forgive when you're willing to be honest. I think this 32-year-old plus lady, I think she's got anger issues, and I think there's a lot more of the backstory. Maybe things happened to her at school. There may be things that did happen that set her off on a tangent, and she finds this boyfriend who's an atheist. And by her announcing now that she's an atheist, that may be her way of expressing her anger toward her mom or hurting somebody else. I have really never met a true atheist.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that category even exists. I think people who say they're atheist are trying to convince themselves they're atheist. But in her case, I think she is obviously lost. Her direction, her sense of direction is off. The values, of appreciation for all her mom did to her, providing her with a roof over her house for all those years, There comes a time you have to have tough love as a parent. Sometimes you have to say, I love you, but no, I'm not going to let this go on under my roof, or no, you can't do that. If you're going to do that, then you're big enough and time has come for you to go out and pay your own rent somewhere, and live somewhere else. So I think you have to have boundaries.
Let me ask you, with all of your experience with being a pastor for a half a century, sorry to put it that way, but it's true, and all the counseling and the family aid that I know had been to many over the years, is it ever that the child grows up, becomes a parent, and then, or is it common, maybe I should ask, that they go, my goodness, Mom, Dad, I got mad that you yelled at me. I realize now, and that there's a full circle moment. Is it if there's a parent out there who's feeling discouraged? Have you seen it that when the child goes through that experience of themselves, where they're no longer the child, but now they're the parent, that they are more empathetic?
Well, yeah.
Is there a healing there, or can there be?
When you start having your own children, then all of a sudden you realize your parents were not as bad as you thought they were. I think a lot of that is happening, and that person needs to take personal responsibility. Blame never brings healing. There's a sense in which you have to take a certain amount of responsibility. And as you grow and mature, especially when you have children of your own, you begin to realize that this parenting thing is tough, and it is not easy, and we have to really sit down and say, okay, what are the important things about parenting? The important thing is that as a parent, my first task is in raising my children is not to try to become their best buddy. My task is that they need a parent, and I need to be that parent. And there's got to be a parent in every relationship. And being a parent there are times when you say no. There's times when you say, not under my roof. There's times when you have to say, I love you, but I can't abide by this. And I think that's part of just raising a child, is a child needs to have boundaries. See, here's the thing. A child is going to feel secure when the parent has boundaries and holds to the boundaries. Now, I've heard parents say, if you do that one more time, and then what does a child do? It does it one more time. Now, I'm telling you, if you do that one more, and then the child does it another, because kids are going to push the boundaries. That's just part of their nature. They need, and when they know what the boundaries are, and the mom and dad are consistent, a child feels secure and loved. And when a parent is inconsistent, and the child doesn't really know what the boundaries are, that's where the child really goes off into a lot of different directions, and some of them can be very destructive. So,
I've seen both.
Yeah, it's out there. Yeah, it's definitely out there. And so I always try to tell parents, experience tough love, give it to them, but they also have got to see all the love. We have to say no so many times as a parent, especially in this world, so that we need to find those opportunities when we can say yes, because we have to say no so many times. And so I think wherever we can say yes, let's say yes. Now, getting back to the question of this dear mom, how does she repair that relationship? Here's the thing that I would say. Number one, love your daughter, express love to your daughter, and just continue to pray for her every day. I believe that love never fails. I believe that no matter what the reaction of the child is, when you're expressing love, love can penetrate the toughest barrier. And that child may put up high walls, but I tell you, when they know and they see and they hear that you love them, love at some point will finally win out, because I tell you, in the real world, life doesn't love these kids.
No.
Life is going to come down on them hard, and when it does, they're going to need a shelter, and they're going to think about mom and dad. So that's why you want to leave as the old Motel 6 commercial says, you need to have the light on,
We'll leave the light on for you.
That's right. And they need to know that you're there for them. But again, it's your home. You have to have rules. If you don't have rules, it's not going to be your home, because then the kids are going to take over.
Sounds a lot like it's training for exactly how the role is with the Father and us.
Absolutely.
In heaven.
Yeah.
He has rules. He has boundaries. He meets us where we are, but he loves us too much to let us stay there.
Yeah.
And when we get out of line, he says at some point, "Not under my roof." And I don't mean to say he kicks you out, but I think he loves us enough to have that line. Here you are, and don't go farther.
Well, he says, every father chastens his children because he loves them. Mm-hmm. And I think people say, well, I don't want to chasten. I don't want to discipline my children. I don't want them to think I don't love them. No, they're going to think you don't love them when you don't give discipline. The Bible says God the Father disciplines us because he loves us, and we have to do the same. Now, when they're 32, it's kind of hard to do that. So going back to this dear mom who wrote this question, I would simply say to you, Mom, pray every day, because she can resist your words, she can resist your tears, she can resist everything but your prayers, because when you pray to God the Father in heaven, he can move hearts on earth. So keep praying and believing. I've seen parents pray for years and years and years, and finally the prodigal came home. I can think of a very close example personally where that happened. And it was many years of prayer and tears and prayers and tears for a prodigal. But I tell you, those prayers and the tears of that mom, the Bible says God bottles up our tears, and they're precious. And I want to tell you, a mom's prayers for a wayward son or daughter ring heaven's bell like no other kind of prayer. Mm-hmm. And just keep praying, and God will answer. Amen. And one day the prodigal, I believe, will come home. So just keep loving, keep the light on the porch, and let them know that you are always going to be there for them no matter what. Well, I think that's it. Is there you have anything else, Charlie, you want to say?
Maybe next time.
Maybe next time.
Eventually, we're gonna get a couple
or say
things
more
in
than
from
3
Charlie.
sentences. Don't worry.
You would. It'll be good. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Okay, well, we got
And with
another
Charlie, baby.
We got another good subject coming up right after this podcast on the next podcast. So stay tuned and tune in again to The Word Unwrapped. I'm your host, Dr. Gregg Curtis. I have Lee Curtis here on my left, and I have Charlie Curtis on my right. So we're kind of making this a family affair. So blessings to you. If you have a question, please send that question to us at thewordunwrapped@gmail.com. Hit the subscribe button or the like button and let us know what your question is, and we'll try to pick it up on a future podcast. Blessings. Bye-bye.
Thank you for being a part of the Word Unwrapped podcast with Dr. Gregg Curtis. In this podcast, we take a deeper dive into some of your favorite Bible verses that may require some added context to further explain their intended meaning. If you have a question or would like to suggest a topic idea for discussion, email us at thewordunwrapped@gmail.com, and we may use your question in a future episode. If you enjoyed today's program, please click the subscribe button, and we'll notify you when new episodes become available. And remember to click the share button if you'd like to send this podcast to family and friends.